You think your problem is that you think too much, that your mind is racing, spiraling, drowning in its own loops. But that's not it. Not exactly. The real issue isn't that you think too much. It's that you absorb too much, without ever stopping to process what any of it means. You don't have a thinking problem. You have a discipline problem. You've never been taught how to guard your awareness, how to protect the sacred space between stimulus and response. And so the world enters. Everything enters. Too fast, too loud, too often, until your mind is no longer a place of reason, but a battlefield of noise. You wake up and the noise begins. Notifications, news, expectations, people's opinions, tasks unfinished, regrets unresolved, all of it flooding in before you've even taken your first breath with presence. And your mind has no filter. It absorbs it all, like a sponge, soaking chaos. No wonder you overthink. You never told your mind what mattered. You never taught it what to ignore, so it clings to everything. Everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes a loop. You don't even know what's real anymore. You just know your head is heavy and your heart is tired, and silence, true silence, feels unbearable. But what if the answer wasn't thinking less? What if the answer was thinking right? That's what the Stoics understood, that the mind isn't your enemy, but it can become your prison. And overthinking is the most silent prison of all. You're not locked in by bars. You're locked in by possibilities. What ifs, loops, scenarios, words never said, outcomes never reached. And worst of all, the need to control everything you can't. That's the hidden root of overthinking. Control. You believe that if you just analyze enough, prepare enough, obsess enough, you'll finally feel safe. But it doesn't work. The more you think, the more fractured you become. Because you're not analyzing reality, you're resisting it. And that resistance is where the suffering begins. The Stoics had a different approach. They believed in strengthening the will, not feeding the worry. They didn't chase certainty. They built character. They didn't beg for peace. They practiced clarity. They didn't try to escape the storm. They became the eye of it. And if you want to break free from overthinking, you don't need more information. You need a philosophy of action, a framework of habits that teaches your mind to obey intention, not fear. This video is not about hacks. It's about habits. Habits drawn from the ancient wisdom of Stoic minds who faced real danger, real loss, real chaos, and still found a way to remain inwardly untouchable. We will walk through 10 of those habits, not abstract ideas. Real, actionable principles you can apply today. Habits that rewire your mental patterns. Habits that silence the noise not by suppression, but by replacement. And most importantly, habits that return your power to where it belongs, the present moment. But before we begin, I want you to ask yourself something. When was the last time you sat with your mind without distraction? No phone, no noise, no escape, just you and your thoughts. Could you handle it? Would you run, or would you listen? Because the first step to clarity is honesty, and if your mind terrifies you, then it's time to train it. Not with force, but with wisdom. Let's begin. The mind is not meant to lead, it's meant to serve. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that. Most people do. They wake up, and the mind is already running, commenting, worrying, judging, planning, guessing. And without realizing it, they're already behind, already being dragged. Because if you don't lead your mind from the first moment you wake, it will lead you straight into chaos. Thought is a tool, not a master, and the Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to feel smarter, but to remember his place. The emperor of Rome, and still, every morning, he had to write down his reminders. Don't get angry. Don't seek approval. Don't indulge the ego. Why? Because he understood something most people never learn. That just because a thought appears doesn't mean it deserves power. Thoughts are like visitors. They come knocking. Some bring wisdom. Most bring noise. Nothing enters your mind until you have entered your own awareness. That space must be protected like sacred ground, because what you allow in first will decide what echoes through the rest of your day. The mind has no loyalty. It follows direction or it follows fear. If you don't tell it where to go, it will return to the most familiar path: overthinking, overanalyzing, creating problems that don't exist, digging up past failures, rehearsing conversations that will never happen, all in the name of control, all in the hope that if you just think a little more, the discomfort will go away. But it doesn't. It multiplies. Because thought is not neutral. It takes shape from your attention. And when you give attention to fear, fear becomes the lens through which you see the world. So you must choose a different lens. Not in the middle of the storm, but before it begins. Create a morning ritual of stillness. Sit, breathe, observe, not to feel mystical, but to train your posture, to anchor your being before the noise pulls you. 5 minutes of intentional silence. No reacting, just sitting with your thoughts and watching them pass. Like clouds, like strangers on a street. You don't chase them. You don't fight them. You let them move. That's where the power begins. It's not about stopping thought. It's about separating from it, creating space between the thought and the self. That space is everything. It's where choice lives. It's where clarity breathes. It's where you decide, this thought stays, this one goes. This thought serves me, this one enslaves me. And with enough practice, that space gets wider, stronger. You stop being the prisoner of your own loops. You become the architect of your mental landscape. The mind was never designed to be captain. It's a navigator, a messenger, a mirror. And when you confuse it for the king, everything collapses. But when you place it back into its rightful position, below will, below wisdom, below intention, it becomes your greatest ally. You don't need to stop thinking, you just need to start leading. So tomorrow, when you wake up, don't reach for your phone. Don't reach for noise. Reach inward, sit in silence, even if it feels uncomfortable, especially if it feels uncomfortable, because that's where the training begins. And the more you do this, the more your mind will learn. I am not the master here. I take orders. I don't give them. You're not overthinking. You're under-commanding. Fix that, and the rest begins to quiet itself. Most overthinking isn't thought. It's incomplete thought. It's mental inertia. Loops left open. Questions half-asked. Fears vaguely felt, but never fully examined. You don't suffer because your mind is active. You suffer because it refuses to close. And what stays open continues to leak. Energy, clarity, peace. This is something the Stoics understood deeply. Clarity is closure, and overthinking thrives in the absence of it. When you avoid naming the thought, it grows roots. When you delay finishing the inner sentence, it multiplies in the dark. A vague discomfort becomes a phantom. You don't know what's wrong, just that something is. And that something becomes everything. So what's the solution? You must finish your inner sentences. You must catch the thought mid-loop and bring it to the surface, not to fix it, but to finish it, to give it an end, even if it's unresolved. Because an incomplete thought is like an open wound. It festers, but a finished thought, even if it stings, begins to heal. Ask yourself, what thought am I avoiding finishing? It's never just one. It's a web. But start with the one that returns the most. The one that circles you when you lie in bed. The one that whispers when you're alone. The one that hides behind your scrolling, your distractions, your productivity. That's the one that holds the weight. And more often than not, it sounds like this. What if it all goes wrong? Or, what if I'm not enough? Or, what if they leave? Now finish it. Say it out loud or write it down. What if it all goes wrong? Then I'll face it. Then I'll adapt. Then I'll begin again. See how the mind softens when you complete what it was afraid to admit? The brain seeks completion. It seeks end points. But if you constantly avoid the ending, you live in a state of suspended tension, a mind always bracing, never releasing. That's where exhaustion is born, not from action, but from anticipation with no exit. The Stoics practiced a form of this through reflection. Seneca wrote daily, not to indulge his thoughts, but to contain them. His writing was a way of cutting the loop, closing the question, naming the fear. He didn't wait for the mind to settle. He gave it structure. He turned fear into ink. That act alone transformed what felt infinite into something finite, something you could observe, challenge, and release. When you journal, don't write to perform. Don't write to sound wise. Write to finish. Begin with, the thought I'm avoiding is, and follow it without filter. Don't correct, don't polish, just follow it until the mind exhales. You'll be surprised how quickly your demons shrink when they're brought into daylight. Shadows only seem large when you refuse to face the source of light. Overthinking thrives in the realm of the unsaid, the repressed, the delayed. And if you want freedom, you must stop running. You must turn and look the thought in the eye and say, I see you. Here's what you are. Here's how you end. Will it always be beautiful? No. Will it fix everything instantly? No. But it will close the loop. And that is everything. Because even if the problem remains, the mind no longer has to rehearse it 1,000 times in search of control. You don't need to banish fear to find peace. You need to complete the sentence the fear keeps interrupting. You need to finish the thought that keeps asking for attention. That's how you reclaim authority over your inner world. That's how you teach the mind. Clarity lives here. We don't run, we finish. If you do this every day, even for 5 minutes, something changes. Not dramatically, not all at once, but deeply. The mind gets quieter because it begins to trust you. Trust that you'll listen. Trust that you'll respond. Trust that you won't keep leaving everything open, bleeding, unresolved. And once the mind learns that, overthinking no longer has a home. It becomes a guest, and one you can send away. You hear a thought and immediately feel compelled to follow it. Question it. Argue with it. Fix it. As if the mere appearance of a thought demands your participation. It doesn't. Most thoughts aren't orders. They're noise, residue, leftovers from yesterday's stress, last week's fear, or someone else's belief. But because you were never trained to observe without reacting, you treat every thought like it's true, urgent, and personal. And that's how the storm begins. A person who reacts to every thought is like a city with no gates. Anything can enter. Anything can stay. And eventually, the city becomes unrecognizable, overtaken by foreign voices, fears, and fragments that don't even belong to it. That's what happens to your mind when you let every thought take root. You become a host for noise, not the master of clarity. The Stoics knew better. They practiced indifference to anything not under their control. And what could be less under your control than the first thought that appears in your mind? You didn't summon it. It arose, like wind, like weather. Your power doesn't lie in the appearance of the thought. It lies in what you choose to do next. Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. But what fuels that imagination? Repetition, engagement, the refusal to let the thought pass without a reaction. If you keep revisiting it, feeding it, answering its every question, your imagination becomes a prison, a place where your energy is spent solving problems that don't exist, preparing for disasters that never come, rehearsing dialogues that will never happen. All because one single thought appeared, and you forgot you had the power to ignore it. Here's the habit. Before responding to any thought, ask yourself, does this help me act with clarity right now? Not tomorrow, not in theory, right now. If the answer is no, then the thought is excess, and excess must be discarded. not with aggression, but with discipline, like a sculptor chiseling away what doesn't belong. What remains is not silence. What remains is form, structure, simplicity. Most people confuse thinking with intelligence, but there's nothing intelligent about spiraling, about rehearsing pain, about simulating every possible outcome until you're paralyzed. That's not intelligence. That's a lack of command. Real wisdom is knowing when not to think, when to shut the gate, when to let a thought drift away without chasing it. That's clarity, and that's freedom. Try this. For the next hour, every time a thought enters your mind, pause. Don't respond. Don't finish the sentence. Don't feed the loop. Just notice it and let it pass. The first few times will feel unbearable. The mind will scream. But then, quiet. A strange stillness. Not because the thoughts stopped, but because you stopped answering the door. The noise is still knocking, but you no longer invite it in. This is how you weaken the grip of overthinking. Not by fighting every thought, but by realizing not every thought is worthy of a fight. Some are smoke, some are habit, some are the echoes of old identities trying to stay alive. Let them fade, let them pass. You are not their servant. This is why silence is so difficult for most people. Not because silence is empty, but because it reveals how full their minds are with unresolved noise. When you stop reacting, you face what's left. And what's left is the truth. Most of your mental suffering comes not from what is, but from your refusal to let go of what isn't. If you learn to let thoughts pass without chasing them, the mind finds its natural rhythm again. It recalibrates. It begins to trust your authority. And instead of attacking you with an endless stream of what-ifs, it waits. It listens. It follows your lead. That's what Stoic discipline does. It teaches the mind to wait for direction, not panic in the absence of it. So next time a thought arises and you feel that pull, that need to fix it, solve it, answer it, pause. Ask, does this move me forward with clarity? If not, let it dissolve. Let it return to the nothing it came from. You owe nothing to a thought that doesn't serve your peace. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which ones to keep. Fear doesn't grow in the presence of truth. It grows in its absence. It feeds on avoidance, on things left undefined. You feel the tension. You sense something could go wrong, but you never finish the thought. You never say what going wrong really means. So fear becomes this shapeless weight, a fog, a phantom, always near, but never seen, and that's why it dominates you. This is how overthinking survives, not because the danger is real, but because the mind is left to wander, to imagine, to inflate. And when you don't define the worst-case scenario, your brain assumes it's unbearable, that if it ever happened, you'd fall apart, that you couldn't recover, that everything would end. But how do you know that? You don't, because you've never looked. You've never actually gone there. The Stoics had a word for this practice, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evil. But it wasn't pessimism. It wasn't obsession with failure. It was preparation, courage, clarity. They understood that the way to dissolve fear is not to run from it, but to walk directly into it, to name it, to define it, to look it in the eye, then return, not untouched, but unshaken. So here's the habit. Once a day, sit in stillness and walk through the thing you fear most. Not vaguely, not hypothetically, in detail. What's the worst thing that could realistically happen in your current situation? Say it out loud, write it down, spell it out with all its discomfort. Then ask, if this actually happened, what would I do? And this is the part most people miss. When you answer that question honestly, you realize something powerful. You wouldn't fall apart. You'd adapt. You'd respond. You'd survive. Maybe you'd struggle, but you'd still move. And that single realization, that even the worst is endurable, weakens fear's grip. It breaks the illusion that overthinking protects you. You don't need to prepare for every scenario. You need to prove to yourself that you'll face any scenario and remain yourself. That's the Stoic advantage. That's what made Marcus Aurelius unbreakable. The man ruled an empire while enduring plague, war, betrayal, and personal loss. And yet, in his private writings, you see no panic, no desperation, just reflections, just order. Why? Because he rehearsed hardship before it arrived. And so when it came, he wasn't surprised. He was ready. Most people wait for fear to attack before they prepare. But by then, it's too late. Their mind is already hijacked, their clarity gone. And in the middle of the storm, they try to build shelter. That's not strategy, that's survival. But you don't need to live that way. You can practice your response before the fear appears. You can rehearse stability like a warrior rehearses combat. So when the moment comes, you don't flinch. You remember. Try it now. Think of something you're avoiding. A conversation, a decision, a risk. Now complete the sentence. The worst that could happen is... Then follow it. Fully. Not with panic, but with calm. Ask what would come next, and next, until you reach the end. Until there's no more imagination left to fear, just the truth, and your readiness to face it. Because once you've seen the worst, everything else becomes manageable. It's not that life won't still hurt, it will. But you'll know where your limits are. You'll know what you can endure. And that knowledge creates silence, a deeper quiet than anything external can offer. The silence of a mind that has already walked through fire and returned, unharmed. Overthinking is not strength. It's a symptom of avoidance. You don't need to think more. You need to go deeper. You need to look fear in the eye, walk the path to the edge of your imagined worst-case scenario, and realize you're still here, still breathing, still capable of standing up and moving forward. That's where power lives. Not in perfection, but in preparation. The mind calms when the unknown is made known, when the undefined becomes defined, when the feared becomes familiar. So don't run from the thought. Follow it. Finish it. Face the thing you fear, then return. Not to who you were, but to who you now know you are. Your mind doesn't spiral because you worry. It spirals because you worry whenever it wants to, at any time, in any situation, without boundaries. Your mind is always open for business, and worry walks in whenever it pleases. It interrupts your focus, your rest, your presence. It doesn't ask, it invades, and you let it. Not because you're weak, but because no one taught you that worry, like any guest, needs a schedule. And when you don't give it one, it stays all day. The problem isn't that you think about what might go wrong. That's human. The problem is that you let those thoughts arrive at random, like smoke slipping under the door. There's no control, no structure, no moment when you say, enough. And that's when overthinking becomes a lifestyle, not a momentary reaction, but a constant mode of being, a posture of tension, a loop without end. The Stoics were not strangers to fear. They lived under tyrants, disease, exile, and death. But what made them different was how they dealt with fear, with boundaries. They didn't try to erase discomfort. They placed it in a frame. They faced it on their terms. And that's what this habit is about, giving your mind a container for worry. And then, closing the lid. Set a fixed time each day, 10 minutes no more, where you allow yourself to worry deliberately. Call it what it is. This is your worry window. During that time, you write down what's on your mind, what you're afraid of, what might go wrong. But here's the key. You do it with full presence. No distractions, no half-thinking. You give your fears the spotlight, and then you take it away. When the 10 minutes end, you stop. You breathe. You close the notebook. And you move on. If a worry arises later in the day, you tell it. Not now. You had your time. You'll have your time again tomorrow. This may sound mechanical, even forced, but it's discipline. And discipline creates peace. Because the mind begins to understand that worry has its place, and it's not everywhere. Most people never challenge the timing of their fear. They assume that if a worry arises, it must be dealt with now. But that's a trap. Not every mental alert is urgent. Not every thought deserves your energy. Worry, when given structure, loses its power. It becomes less like a storm and more like a scheduled meeting. You don't cancel your life for it. You don't bend your soul around it. You contain it. This is not suppression. It's order. It's what Marcus Aurelius did when he reflected before dawn. He didn't deny his challenges. He named them, met them, then stepped into his day. The key was intentionality, a sacred boundary between thought and action, between inner noise and outer clarity. Try this for 7 days. Choose the same time daily. Morning or night, it doesn't matter. What matters is consistency. Sit down, set a timer for 10 minutes, and let it pour. Every fear, every doubt, every worry. Then stop. You'll notice something almost immediately. Most of the thoughts you wrote down were echoes, not new, just familiar noise. But now, seen clearly, they begin to dissolve. Overthinking thrives in randomness. It needs surprise, panic, immediacy. When you strip those away, it weakens. It has nothing to feed on. You replace reactive spirals with proactive clarity. And the more you do this, the more your mind will trust the process. It will stop sounding the alarm at 2 a.m. It will wait. It will calm. It will obey. Structure is kindness. To your thoughts, to your nervous system, to your life. Without it, you're a prisoner of whatever enters your mind. With it, you're free to act, without dragging the entire weight of your fear behind you. You can't stop worry from arising, but you can choose when to deal with it. And that single act changes everything. Because now, you're no longer the victim of your thoughts. You're the one who tells them when to speak and when to leave. You can't quiet a mind that's never known silence. You can't slow a mind that's addicted to movement. And yet, every time you feel overwhelmed, distracted, overstimulated, you reach for the same solution that caused the problem. More input, another scroll, another video, another voice in your head that isn't yours. You don't call it noise. You call it information. But the mind knows the difference. It's not learning, it's running. And the more you run, the louder everything gets. Stillness must be chosen. It doesn't arrive on accident. It isn't a reward. It's a discipline. One that the modern world is designed to make you forget. Because stillness is threatening to the ego. It reveals too much. It strips away the justifications, the distractions, the identity you've been maintaining through busyness. That's why silence feels so loud to people who never practice it. Because without constant noise, you start to hear yourself again. And not everyone's ready for that. The Stoics lived in a world that was physically louder, but spiritually quieter. They had less input, but more depth. They didn't distract themselves from their own minds. They trained them. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he still made time for dawn meditations, for walking alone, for sitting in reflection before acting. Why? Because he understood that a man who cannot sit still is a man who will never rule himself. Voluntary stillness is not laziness, it's confrontation. It's the moment you stop negotiating with chaos. The moment you say, no more noise enters this hour, no more inputs, no more updates, no more stimulation. You shut the gates and let the dust settle, not to find peace, but to find truth. What's actually in your mind when nothing else is speaking? That's the real you. And for most people, it's a stranger. Practice 1 hour of stillness every day. Not half present, not multitasking. Total disconnection. No screens, no stimulation, just you. Walking, sitting, breathing, noticing. At first, your thoughts will attack. They'll demand your attention. They'll beg you to pick the phone back up. That's the detox. That's the chaos leaving your system. Let it scream, let it ache, and stay where you are. Overthinking is a symptom of a mind that's never been trained to be alone. It panics when it's not fed. But when you teach it to stand in silence, even for a few minutes, you're building strength most people never touch. You're doing what philosophers, warriors, mystics all understood. The mind that can be still is the mind that can be sharp, focused, unshaken. Stillness doesn't mean the absence of thought. It means the absence of compulsion. The thoughts still appear, but you're not pulled by them. You watch them move, but you stay. That's command. That's presence. That's where wisdom grows. There will always be something urgent, something buzzing, something loud. You have to create a space that is louder than the noise, not in volume, but in value. A space where nothing gets in unless it deserves to. That's what voluntary stillness gives you. Not escape, but ownership. You reclaim your perception, your attention, your mind. You don't wait for peace to appear. You practice the conditions that allow it. Just like a warrior trains in calm to be ready for chaos, you sit in silence so you won't break when life screams. Because it will. The world won't slow down for you. So you must become the one who moves slower, the one who sees clearly, the one who acts without panic. Stillness is the opposite of passivity. It's the source of power. But it must be voluntary. It must be claimed. And if you wait for the world to offer it to you, you'll wait forever. You must carve it out like sacred ground, not as luxury, but as necessity. The mind needs rest, but not sleep. It needs stillness, a place where it is no longer performing, reacting, digesting, just being, just listening. And the more you visit that place, the more it begins to visit you. In moments of stress, in moments of temptation, in the middle of the storm. That stillness appears like a memory, because you practiced it. And when that happens, overthinking doesn't disappear. It transforms. It becomes background noise, no longer a master, just another sound, easily ignored. If this were your last day alive, would this thought matter? Most people never ask that. They assume their mind has unlimited space, that they can afford to worry, complain, obsess, and rewind, because time is endless. So they give their energy to thoughts that don't serve, to triggers that don't deserve, to worries that don't belong. But what if you didn't have that luxury? What if this hour was your final hour? Would that thought still be worth your attention? Overthinking only survives in the absence of mortality. When you forget death, everything feels urgent. Every problem seems massive. Every opinion feels personal. But when you remember death, a deep sorting begins. The mind sheds its layers. And suddenly, most of what you were obsessing over reveals itself as trivial, irrelevant, hollow. Like dust you were clenching with both hands. The Stoics meditated on death not to be morbid, but to be free. They didn't fear it. They used it as a compass, a filter, a sword. They would ask, if this is the last thought I entertain, is it worthy of me? Imagine living that way, where your thoughts are not random visitors, but chosen guests, where your attention is guarded like treasure, where your mental energy is no longer spent on things you'd laugh at on your deathbed. That's what the last thought technique does. It's not complicated. It's not mystical. It's a question. One question. Simple, brutal, clarifying. When your mind begins to spiral, when it grabs onto something and refuses to let go, pause. Look at that thought. And ask, if this were my last hour alive, would I still entertain this? Would I still argue in my head with that person? Would I still rewatch that failure? Would I still obsess over what might go wrong tomorrow? The answer, almost always, is no. Because when the end is near, truth sharpens. You stop negotiating with drama. You stop indulging noise. And in that clarity, what matters reveals itself. Peace is not found in thinking more. Peace is found in remembering what thinking is for. To solve, to act, to reflect, not to spiral. But here's the catch. You can't wait until death to learn this. It has to become a habit now, before the diagnosis, before the loss, before the moment when clarity is forced upon you. That's what the Stoics practiced. Voluntary mortality awareness. They rehearsed their death daily so they could live rightly, so they could make decisions based not on fear, but on finality. Try this. Once a day, pause. Choose any moment of tension. Any moment when your mind grabs a problem and won't release it. Now ask, if I only had 1 hour left, is this what I'd spend it thinking about? And watch how quickly the weight drops. Watch how quickly your body softens. It's not denial, it's proportion. You stop giving eternity to what deserves a blink. This habit changes how you react. Someone insults you? If it's your last day, would you carry it? Someone misunderstands you? If you were dying tomorrow, would you spend today justifying yourself? You fail? If life were closing soon, would you rehearse that mistake for hours? You already know the answer. The practice doesn't mean you stop thinking. It means you stop obeying every thought. You start filtering your thoughts through the lens of what will matter when there's no more time to waste. That's where the power is. Not in silencing the mind by force, but in silencing it by truth. The truth that your time is limited, that your breath is a gift, that your next thought could be your last. And if it is, let it be clean. Let it be clear. Let it be yours. Not a loop, not a wound, not a ghost. Every day is your last in miniature. Don't let overthinking steal it. You wait for silence to happen. You wait for space to appear. You wait for the world to quiet down so your mind can follow. But it never does. The world doesn't offer solitude. It sells stimulation. And if you're not deliberate, you become another consumer of noise. Not because you love it, but because you've forgotten how to be without it. Solitude is not passive. It's not just being alone. It's the act of choosing yourself, fully, directly, without escape. And in that choice, something sacred happens. Not instantly, not easily, but over time. The excess begins to melt. The chaos begins to settle. Because the mind, like the body, needs room to breathe. And modern life gives it none. You think you're mentally exhausted because of how much you do. But the real weight comes from how little you pause, how little you stop taking in, how rarely you allow space between inputs. You scroll, switch, jump, consume all day long, and you call it normal. But it's not. It's overload, it's pollution, and eventually the cost shows up in your focus, in your sleep, in your presence, in your ability to hear your own voice. The Stoics didn't wait for solitude. They created it, deliberately. They walked alone. They reflected in silence. They carved time out of their days, no matter how full, to return to themselves. Marcus Aurelius didn't make excuses. He found moments between war and politics and loss to sit quietly with his thoughts, to strip away what wasn't necessary, and to remind himself who he was when the world wasn't speaking. That's not luxury, that's leadership. That's what a mind in command does. You must do the same. Solitude must become an appointment, non-negotiable. Not when you're done with everything else, but as part of everything else. 1 hour a week, minimum. No phone, no music, no scrolling, no input. Just you, walking, sitting, breathing, listening. At first, you'll hate it. The silence will feel hostile. You'll want to reach for something, anything to fill the gap. But that discomfort, that's the detox. That's the residue of distraction leaving your system. And what remains after that is clarity. Not the kind you force, the kind that appears when the fog clears on its own. You begin to notice how much of your thinking wasn't yours, how much of your worry was borrowed, how many of your fears were just echoes of things you absorbed, not things you believed. That realization only comes in solitude, because only in solitude is everything else removed. You have to treat it like a meeting with someone important, because you are. If it's not on your calendar, it won't happen. The world will fill your time with demands and updates and requests, all dressed as urgent, none as essential. And every time you say yes to all of it, you say no to yourself. You forget what it feels like to be alone and not lonely, to be still and not stuck, to be undistracted and not bored. And that's the turning point, when solitude no longer feels empty, but full. When it stops being the absence of something and becomes the presence of everything that matters, your values, your direction, your attention, all waiting for you to return to them. 1 hour. That's the practice. That's the habit. Protect it. Keep it. Don't negotiate it away. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be beautiful. Just real, honest, regular. And when you show up to it over and over again, something changes. The mind learns to rest, not in distraction, not in reaction, but in awareness. You won't need to run from thoughts anymore, because they'll no longer chase you. You'll have faced them, heard them. Let them speak, let them go. And the space they leave behind, that's not emptiness. That's peace. A peace you earned by returning to yourself. If that resonates with you, stay close to this path. Subscribe, reflect with us, and leave your mark below. Sometimes the right question in the comments is where someone else's clarity begins.